We have huge breaking video. Donald Trump finally speaks his first remarks after the attempt on his life, and you'll hear it in just a moment. Plus, the director of this Secret Service under fire, actually chased down by a gaggle of U.S. senators at the Republican National Convention. It's a stunning video, and you're going to see that. Also, Joe Biden, is this it? We have a follow-up from yesterday's blockbuster story. It looks like he's on his way out. I'm sorry. He's just got a really bad case of COVID, right? Sure he does. Also, Joy Reid, as if she couldn't be more insane. She's gone full blue anon with conspiracy theories. How long does NBC News keep her on the payroll? Well, they're stuck with her. We got all that and, of course, a whole lot more. We've got you because it's Thursday. And my name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Live streaming like a absolute blowtorch across the entire internet. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for joining our chat room. We're trying to interact more with the chats, especially when some of our longer videos are playing. I'm doing what I can, but we're also juggling a lot of balls. Did you know that only 2 people do this entire show from beginning to end? Kevin, say hi to everybody. There are a lot of new people here watching. They don't even know you, Kevin.
Howdy, everybody. I am Kevin, secret producer from behind the scenes.
Isn't he handsome? So thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining the chat. And as always, thanks for liking and subscribing to our videos. And a real quick hello to everybody watching across the Town Hall media platforms. That's right. We're not just on social media, on your X and your Rumble and your YouTube and your Facebook, but we're also at townhall.com, at redstate.com, at pjmedia.com, at hotair.com, at twitchy.com. They're lunatics over at Twitchy. And, of course, at bearingarms.com. Hello to everyone across the Town Hall Media universe. And make sure you watch our final live blog at townhall.com tonight during the finale of the Republican National Convention. So everyone's waiting for tonight when Donald Trump finally takes the stage in Milwaukee, accepts the nomination to be president of the United States, and delivers his first remarks after the attempt on his life this last Saturday. Everyone's waiting for that. It's going to be great. But you don't have to wait for his first remarks, because he actually met with a caucus today in Milwaukee to deliver remarks. And Monica Crowley, former spokeswoman for the Treasury Department under Donald Trump, former radio talk show host and television personality, she was in the room. And she grabbed video, and you're going to watch it with me. This is the first public statement from Donald Trump after the attempt on his life. Let's watch it together.
That happened, but I got lucky. God was with me. That's what they call a close call. That was an amazing, horrible thing, amazing thing. In many ways, it changes your attitude, your viewpoint on life. And I think, honestly, I think you appreciate God even more. I really do, because something happened. Not that it was pleasant. It wasn't like it was a complete miss, but it was pretty terrible that can happen, and it happens too often. We have things going on, just crime in our country is so bad, and things are going on with our country. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it. Yes. We're going to bring it back. We're going to get rid of the criminals. There's so many people coming in. It's so sad when they come in from the prisons, the South American countries. And by the way, this is coming from all over the world. The people are coming from. It's the problem I talk about. To me, it's the border. It's so big. In 2016, it was the border, and we fixed it. And I kept saying, well, let's talk about it for 2020. The people said, all my geniuses said, oh, no, we can't talk about that. You've already fixed it. I said, I want to talk about the border. I fixed it. Nobody's interested. The fact is, in 2016, we had a really bad border, but it was a tiny fraction of what it is now. What it was in 2016, we'll take it right now. It was much better. And I fixed it easily. We built hundreds of miles of wall. That wall, without the wall, you would be 10 times worse off than you are right now, if that's possible. And I'm not sure it's possible, because people are flowing in by the millions and millions. I think it's going to be 20 million By the time we get this guy out, we have to get him out. If we don't get him out, we're not going to have a country. We're really not going to have a country. He's still there.
All right, there's just a preview of what we're going to hear tonight. You heard at the very beginning, though, specifically saying that God saved him. God protected him, that it was divine intervention. And anybody who sees those videos, who sees the slight turn of his head at the very moment that that would-be assassin fired off the bullet that would have shattered his skull in front of all of us, we've all said the same thing. That was God at work. And for those of you who have been watching the convention, watching the dramatic entrance of Donald Trump starting Monday night, really every night, though, as he enters the arena and makes his way up to his seat to watch the proceedings, so many of us have mentioned that what appears to be a different Donald Trump, a different way he's holding himself, a different look on his face, a different level of peace, serenity, strength, resolve, gratitude, maybe all wrapped up into one. And now you hear it from his own mouth. The gratitude to God and a newfound resolve that there's a reason why he's still here. There's a reason why he is exactly in the place that he's in, and he's ready to get the job done. And for a lot of people, they were saying, this is going to soften him. It's going to change his position. No, it's not. No, it's not. He is who he is, and he believes what he believes. And his plan going forward is to execute that agenda in the same way that he did in his first presidency. I think, from my perspective, hearing those remarks right there and seeing him, and also talking to people that I know who are more in the inner circle of Donald Trump, and I'm not suggesting I am, but I do know people who are in that inner circle. He has a newfound perspective, and he has a new level of priority on who he is and what his role on this planet in history is. Let me sum it up this way. I don't think going forward we're going to have a lot of fights about crowd sizes, right? And about some of the petty things that frankly, as a supporter of Donald Trump, I got frustrated with, that we got bogged down in some of the smaller minutia kind of fights that don't need to happen. I think you've got a focus now on what needs to get done and how essential it is that we get it done. When God gives you a chance like this, you take it seriously. Now, last night at the convention, President Trump's granddaughter made her very first public appearance. This is his oldest granddaughter. Her name is Kai Trump. She is the eldest daughter of Donald Trump Jr. And she delivered a message also from her perspective about her grandfather, about that assassination attempt, and about the humanity of the Trump family, something that you don't hear about much anywhere in the media. The way they portray this man and his family, they are monsters.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Madison Trump. I am the granddaughter of Donald Trump. I'm speaking today to share the side of my grandpa that people don't often see. To me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking. He always wants to know how we're doing in school. When I made the high honor roll, he printed it out to show his friends how proud he was of me. I know. He calls me during the middle of the school day to ask how my golf game is going and tells me all about his. But then I have to remind him that I'm in school and I'll have to call him back later. When we play golf together, if I'm not on his team, he'll try to get inside of my head. I know. And he's always surprised that I don't let him get to me. But I have to remind him, I'm a Trump too. even when he's going through all these court cases, he always asks me how I'm doing. He always encourages me to push myself to be the most successful person I can be. Obviously, he sets the bar pretty high, but who knows, maybe one day I'll catch him. On Saturday, I was shocked when I heard that he has been shot, and I just wanted to know if he was okay. It was heartbreaking that someone would do that to another person. A lot of people have put my grandpa through hell, and he's still standing. Grandpa, you are such an inspiration, and I love you. The media makes my grandpa seem like a different person, but I know him for who he is. He's very caring and loving. He truly wants the best for this country, and he will fight every single day to make America great again. Thank you very much.
So politically, obviously, this is a very smart move, because if you want to show the humanity of a person who has been portrayed as a monster, the most evil human walking the planet, the second coming of Hitler, one way is to project him through the eyes of his loving and doting granddaughter. It's a very smart move. You also get to see a loving and doting grandfather receiving those words of love and support and admiration, and you see the proud and soft look on his face as all of that is happening. That's fantastic. It's great stuff. It's great stagecraft. Let's face it. And I'm not dismissing this. This is stagecraft. That's what a convention is all about, and they're good at it. And this was a powerful, emotional moment, not just for those who already like Donald Trump and who don't buy all of the lies that have been said about him, but for the people who are tuning in to say, let's see what Trump has to offer, because I've heard a caricature about him. Let me see it for myself. And then if this is what they see, that makes a difference. But there's also something here that is being said without actually going out and saying it. What you just saw can't really be done at the Democratic National Convention with Joe Biden, should he make it that far. It would be really heartwarming to have all of Joe Biden's grandchildren up on stage, wouldn't it? I mean, all you hear from the Bidens is what a great family man, and family's the most important. I give you my word as a Biden. It's the Biden brand. It's who we are. Who in the Biden family do you have out there? Do you have Hunter? How about his youngest granddaughter, Navy? Oh, that's right. He just recently even acknowledged that that granddaughter exists, and he still has never met her. He has never even allowed that little girl to come into her presence. And why? Because he is politically embarrassed by the circumstances of her birth, let's say. That's the devout Catholic, loving, doting, family first grandfather that is Joe Biden. Because Navy Biden's birth, and more importantly, conception, was politically embarrassing and inconvenient for Joe. He just decides that he will never see her, and was forced by a court of law to even acknowledge her existence. Say what you will about Donald Trump, and God knows they have. They have slimed him. They have demeaned him. They have lied about him. They have tried to do everything to destroy this man. But one thing you can't say about him is that he is such a despicable, cold-hearted person that he won't even acknowledge the existence of a 5-year-old girl because his son happened to conceive her in a tawdry fashion. That's a big difference between these two men, isn't it? And all of that was something that I picked up on. That's what I heard when I saw this speech without any of it having to be said. And finally, as we reflect on where Donald Trump is and the Trump campaign is on this final day of the convention, we have a glimpse of the very first long-form web ad for the brand new Trump Vance ticket, and it is a banger. Take a look.
Trump has left the building.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency. What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
We have a president who actually fulfilled the promises he made during the campaign, securing the border to foreign policy.
He now has a record as president that's pretty damn impressive.
Breaking news out of Palm
The
Beach,
FBI
Florida.
has executed an unprecedented search warrant at President Donald Trump's
Florida
Mar-a-Lago
against the
estate.
former
President has both sides of the political aisle up
Is
in
a
arms.
dangerous and unstable moment in American
The
history.
Justice Department has just indicted former President Donald Trump.
For 7 years, they hated him, they targeted him, they hunted him.
This is the epitome of the abuse of the prosecutorial power to preempt political decisions.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way, and I will never be moving. On November 5th, 2024, justice will be done. We will take back our country, and we will make America great again. America will always rise to every challenge and overcome every danger.
Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged. These types of things, I think, give him strength.
When I'm reelected, I will totally obliterate the deep state. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail.
That goes hard, as the kids like to say, and I hope you noticed something about it. There were a lot of scenes of Donald Trump appearing in court in New York and in various venues to face the lawfare prosecution of Biden, the left, and the Democrats. He's not shying away from it. He's not hiding from it. He's not trying to put it under a blanket and say, oh, no, don't look over here. Don't look over there. No, 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 no. He's wearing it like a badge of honor. He's stepping up and owning it and saying, look what they did to me. And I am still standing. I am not just standing. I am standing proud. I am striding toward the fire, not running from it. I'm not ashamed of it. In fact, he's saying they should be ashamed of it. The Trump campaign on this day, July 18th, 2024, the final day of the Republican National Convention, just 5 days after an assassination attempt on President Trump's life. The Trump campaign hitting its stride right now. It's a good time to be a Republican. Hey, how's your savings right now? Talk about a good time. Is this a good time to have your savings in cash, let's say? Well, cash, as you know, can render inflation can render cash worthless. So you got to be careful putting too much money in cash for your savings. How about real estate? Well, real estate can crash like it did in 2008. And there's a lot of economic indications that suggest we might have another real estate problem. Some people say we already have one with the interest rates the way they are. You know, the fact of the matter is economies built on a mountain of debt can fall like a house of cards. There are very few physical assets you can invest in that can stand the test of time. Gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia. It's why people are flocking to it right now and why birch gold is busier than ever. Through a little known tax loophole, Birch Gold can let you convert a retirement account into a tax sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part, it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. That's right. These are existing retirement accounts you already have. You just convert them into physical gold. Birch Gold will show you the way. All you have to do is text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Claim your free info kit on gold. Can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, why don't you call the people I trust or text the people I trust? Birch Gold, text Larry to 989898. Or if you prefer, you can text Larry to 989898. But personally, I like 989898 and secure your savings today. I think I'm so funny, don't I? It's true. I do. We have new information on the would-be assassin of Donald Trump and also of the Secret Service failures and maybe, hopefully, soon, some accountability. First, Fox News Digital tracked down a classmate and friend of the would-be assassin and got an exclusive interview. It shows some insight into this person's personality and his politics. Watch.
Thomas was a quiet kid unless there was something that he was passionate about, politics being one of them. He just did not like politicians, especially with the choices that we've had. He did not like our politicians. It was especially during 2016. It was Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, all of them. He showed that he disliked all of them, did not like any of them. So I brought up the fact that I'm Hispanic and, I'm for Trump. And he said, well, you're Hispanic, so shouldn't you hate Trump? And I was like, no, he's great. I mean, like, he's a great president. And he called me stupid or insinuated that I was, he's like, well, that's kind of stupid. If he was a know-it-all. So, like, once again, if he was passionate about something, he would just talk, and acted like he knew everything, especially politics related. And he would say it in a tone that was like, I'm better than you, in a type of way. And, meanwhile, it's like, dude, we're in the same classes. You know what I mean? We're talking about the same stuff here. And whenever it comes to politics, I mean, at the end of the day, I can agree, you can disagree, I can disagree. We're not even nothing about it, man. Like, at that point, it doesn't matter. At that point, it's, we're just starting to figure out who we like and all. But, yeah, he was real smug and arrogant whenever he was talking. And whether that was his way to try to make friends or be funny, I don't know. But it got under my skin a lot. So his friend group, they were known for being, like I said, like just out there, a little bit more recluse. Some of them didn't even show up to school. Some of them went homeschool. Some of them, I think one of them went to like a private school. They were definitely the type, and they did make threats to shoot up our school. And that year, I believe it was our freshman year, because I had left our freshman year. Before I had left, everyone going through Snapchat, everybody's texting, everybody, saying this, that, and the third. Everybody was saying it was Thomas who made a threat, and it was that friend group. Everyone was mainly blaming the friend group, but a name that kept coming up was Thomas. And he never did anything, you know what I mean? He left school for a couple of days. It wasn't anything like a suspension or anything. It was just a couple of days, he was not severely bullied. Almost nobody knew him. So, for somebody who got severely bullied, I'm not going to name names, but I could name you a few students that were severely bullied, and I remember their names. He's not one of them. The signs were there, and somebody definitely had to go down. Somebody, whether he was talking to somebody or somebody either just didn't realize and just overlooked it, somebody should have known, because he was not a loner. And both of his parents being counselors, how do you not see that warning sign here or something? Anybody who knew him should have seen something, should have known something was up. And I know it's kind of easy to hide, but people are going to get their affairs in order before they do something this bold and this drastic, and nobody saw it. And why?
All right, that's fascinating on multiple levels here, especially the threats to shoot up the school. And he said he was then out of school for a few days, not a suspension or anything. I want more information about that. And if, in fact, this threat to shoot up a school was reported and he was disciplined in some way because of it, that means that there's a paper trail. And that means that this guy was, what do we hear all the time? On our radar. Oh, yeah, he was on our radar. And of course, he was on our radar that day. He was on their radar. And he still, slipped through, I suppose. Fascinating stuff. That's Vincent Taormina, former classmate of the would-be assassin. All right. Meanwhile, did you see this scene at the Republican National Convention as senators chased down the director of the Secret Service? Take a look at this.
This is exactly what we were doing today.
This
on the
was
call.
an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President Trump answers.
A bunch of people left across this plaza.
All right, so now the Daily Caller has a longer and more detailed video of this scene, so we're going to watch it from beginning to end. But before we do, can I just ask a quick question? Why is the director of the Secret Service at the Republican National Convention 4 days after an assassination attempt on Donald Trump? Why is she there? Why isn't she like getting to the bottom of the disastrous failure of her department? Why isn't she actually investigating what happened? I guess maybe she's there to conduct interviews of the agents involved, but why would she be walking around the convention floor? She should be doing her job, whatever she thinks that is.
Hey, Larry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
just,
sir.
Just a thought here. Did you just misgender me?
I did, sir.
Thanks
yes,
a lot.
Kevin, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear. Kevin is not transitioning.
So I'm thinking that the reason that Cheadle might be here at the RNC is because she's been doing all this media, and all the media is at the RNC.
That would be disgusting. That would be absolutely disgusting. That she's like, well, I better go where the cameras are. How about you get your work done?
Yeah.
So she's in damage control mode. You think she's going there to negotiate a good interview with Jake?
I mean, she's done like 3 sit-down interviews in the past 4 days, and if all the media and the cameras are all in Milwaukee.
Well, funny you should say that. Not all the MSNBC cameras are there. We're going to get to that a little later when we talk about MSNBC, but did you know that they're using a fake backdrop to make it look like they're there? Yeah, we'll deal with that coming up in a minute. All right. Well, that's a good idea. She might be there for a PR stunt. But the stunt ended up backfiring on her because here come these U.S. senators, a gaggle of them. When you get more than 3 U.S. senators together at the same time, that is the correct word. It's a gaggle. I guess you could also call it a pride of senators. Anyway, let's watch.
All of us were on the call today. Very disappointed. We were all in the queue trying to answer questions, and until we run out of questions, they hadn't. Every one of us had questions that we wanted to ask. We felt we didn't.
All right, so that's Blackburn, that's Langford. Did you hear the one that's speaking right here with his back to us? I'm not sure who that is. That did he just say I'm very disappointed? Disappointed? Senate speak is the worst of all the politician speak in Washington. But they're laying it out. And so she's giving them time and she's listening here. And again, she's literally on the floor in the rafter area of the arena. And you're right, Kevin, that is where the media is set up in many respects. So maybe that is why she's there. That's certainly why senators would be there. They're not going to be with their state delegations. They're going to be where the cameras are, too. All right, let's watch.
Any of the responses that were necessary from you. Very disappointed in your leadership. I have called for your resignation, and I'd rather you resign tonight or start answering our questions right now about the death threat to President Trump and allowing him to go on stage in Pennsylvania at a time when he'd already been alerted that there was somebody with as far as all these situations already identified an hour before, and you let him go on stage without the knowledge of him, the team on the ground, and you put him within less than an inch of his life. So resignation or full explanation to us right now.
We kept trying to get our questions in, and he never was running the phone. It would not have been the director. He was nearly killed. You leave an hour out, you have a suspicious person, and at 5:51, according to the timeline of your deputy, you've identified a potential threat. And then at 5:53, you told, or someone told.
All right, so and I don't know because it's off mic and the sound is rough, but let me tell you what I'm picking up here. Marsha Blackburn is asking one of the most fundamental questions, which is, this would-be assassin was identified as a threat at 5:51. President Trump did not take the stage until about 6:03. Why was he allowed to get on the stage before the threat was neutralized and identified? And by the way, the senators are asking these questions. I want to hear what she has to say. So hold on. Asking these questions was a little bit of, emotion behind it because, we were all emotional. We're all still emotional seeing what we saw on July 13th when that bullet buzzed by and shot Donald Trump in the ear a fraction of an inch from his skull. What's shocking to me is not that senators are getting emotional when questioning the director of the Secret Service about this failure. What's bizarre to me in all of those interviews that she's already given and in this exchange right here, how she's a freaking robot. What is wrong with her? Why she's audio animatronic. She's not showing any emotion. She's acting like it's just another day at work, like she works for the post office or something. Actually, no. Postal workers show more emotion. What is wrong with her? Let's hear her response.
When you know that you've got a potential threat and you've got snipers that are trained on them. So I don't think that this is a format.
Well, you hung up on. We're here. You cut off the moving shirt.
Okay, so what I believe she said is that now is not the right time or place or setting to have this conversation. And the senators jumped up and said, whoa, no. You're here. We're here. We're asking you questions. Let's talk about it. And she doesn't want to have that conversation. All right, James Langford jumps in here.
We'll leave you to that. No, we're going with you.
So what happened was she said, so now's not the time. It's loud. And so I'm going to go now and I'm going to go into my private suite or whatever the hell. And the senators are like, oh, okay, we'll go with you. Let's have the conversation there. And now the chase is on. No
shame, no concern. You answer everyone. I'm going to tell you.
By the way, can I also point out here that she, the director of the Secret Service, has a security detail to try to keep the senators away and to protect her. Have you noticed the senators don't have security? They're just, and again, they're all behind the perimeter. Nobody's got any weapons or anything. They've all been screened already. So there isn't any actual threat. You don't need security to walk through this room. But she does. She's got a detail. See the woman in the ponytail. She looks just like the woman in the ponytail that was haplessly trying to get Donald Trump into his SUV after he got shot at. So now there's Marsha Blackburn like running in her pumps to try to chase her down. And she's running away. She doesn't want to have anything to do with this. She will not answer questions. She will not be held accountable, at least not here at this moment.
The president should have this for the protection. Crying out loud.
Look at that. Three security people escorting her away. No security for the senators. And you just heard the reaction. The president should have this kind of security, for crying out loud.
Just like that.
All right. listen, I think that that's effective, and it actually shows that there's frustration here and that she is not answering questions and acting like she's not accountable. And I'm glad that these senators have done this. I also strangely feel a little like, where have you guys been? This feels a little bit, made for the camera moment, because the fact of the matter is they're United States senators. And for the last 3.5 years, we've seen the overreach of the Justice Department, of the Department of Homeland Security, of Alejandro Mayorkas, who oversees the Secret Service too, by the way, of the Education Department. Let's go back to the Justice Department for a minute, not just the use of lawfare and the persecution of Donald Trump as president or candidate for president. What about the Justice Department going after everyday Americans who go to traditional Latin Mass or who go to a school board meeting? There has been a level of arrogance and authoritarianism from the Biden administration since day one. And these very same senators that you see right now have a position of oversight. They can hold the Biden administration accountable for that. Why haven't they? Why haven't they used this kind of energy and this kind of frustration and this kind of anger on a regular basis for the last 3.5 years? With the border, to begin with. Oh, I know they say a lot at committee hearing meetings and they give press conferences. Why did it take a bullet to Donald Trump's head to make them this energized and want to hold this administration accountable? Because this administration doesn't act like they're accountable to anyone. That's how we got the arrogance that led us to July 13th in the first place. So listen, I'm all happy that they chased her down in the arena here and they got a viral video out of it. Now let's do something. Why do we keep paying for all of this? And I'd love to talk to the 17 Republican senators who joined with the Biden administration for the bipartisan infrastructure bill to pump trillions of dollars into pet projects that Democrats love to have. Because those people that you just showed that you could reach across the aisle with and work with are the same people who don't give a crap about answering any of your questions when you want something done. But boy, you were Johnny on the spot there delivering for them, whether it was the infrastructure bill or whether it was funding for Ukraine. They use you and they abuse you. And then when you're fed up and you actually want answers for something, that's how they treat you. All right, sorry. Just wanted to get that off my chest. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, let Fox Business know yesterday that, yeah, they are moving fast and furious on an investigation into what happened, what went wrong, what fell apart at the Secret Service.
Mr. Speaker, I want to turn your attention to what's going on at the Secret Service. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle is now complying with the House Oversight Committee subpoena for her to appear for a hearing and testimony on the attempted assassination of former President Trump. The hearing is set for Monday of next week. Oversight subpoena states the Secret Service was initially open to working with the committee and having Cheadle testify, but we're told that the Department of Homeland Security officials intervened. They were trying to stop it. What can you tell us?
We're hearing that. We've got to get down to the bottom of it. We organized a call yesterday for all House members, Republican and Democrats. We had most of them on the call. We had the FBI Director Christopher Wray and we had Director Cheadle, Secret Service. They did not give us satisfactory answers to some very important questions, and some of it needs to be in a classified setting, I suppose. But I'm prepared this morning to call on President Biden to fire to Director Cheadle. Yesterday, I said that she should resign. It's clear that she has no intention to do so. But the oversight here, the mistakes, the ineptitude, whatever it is, was inexcusable. We almost lost the life of a former president. And I think there has to be accountability, and it begins at the top.
Okay. Hey, everybody. It's all good because FBI Director Christopher Wray is on the case. You know, the same guy who oversaw the investigations into people going to traditional Latin Mass or going to school board meetings, or even the arrest and prosecution of people praying outside of Planned Parenthood abortion mill. So everything's fine. He oversaw the Mar-a-Lago raid. So good news there. Here's the sad thing is that we can't trust whatever this investigation proves. I mentioned this yesterday. If you're really going to do an investigation, and I'm spinning off of Corey Mills's interview with CNN that we delved into in detail yesterday. If you're really going to do a transparent, open investigation, you don't immediately discount any possibility until the evidence discounts it. And right now, we're all looking at the same evidence. And it seems to me that the exact same evidence that we are looking at leads us in one of two directions. Either this was the grossest negligence and incompetence we have ever seen from what had been a sterling, pristine organization in the federal government, the Secret Service. And this is the darkest day of their modern history. Or this was actually some kind of nefarious action. They're either incompetent or they're evil. And sadly, the evidence has not discounted. When I say they, I don't mean Secret Service agents. I mean, whatever was at play here. And however decisions were ultimately made, there should be a paper trail to say who made those decisions. And yeah, either incompetent or evil are the only two options I come up with. Either way, I don't know how the director of the Secret Service keeps her job. If it's one of the, oh, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not evil or anything. We didn't want Trump to be murdered. No. We're just completely incompetent. Feel better now? That's the best she's got. That's the very best she's got. And it's not like she can say, no, I came in here because I had to fix a broken department and we're still sort of fixing it, but we've made progress. But yeah, we've got problems. No, the Secret Service was just fine. And you know the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Secret Service wasn't broke, but they came in with a fix. Oh, see, from their eyes, it was broken. From Biden's eyes, from the political left in this country, personified by the Democratic Party, they saw the Secret Service and they said, oh, there's something wrong here. We have to fix it. And it's like, oh, really? It doesn't seem broke to me. It seems to be that it's doing its job. What's the fix? What are you going to fix? Not enough women, not enough people of color, not enough representation or job opportunities for people. So we're gonna change the standards and make sure that we've got representation and inclusivity because it's not diverse enough. That is literally fixing something that's not broken. And by the way, the fix could very well be what ends up breaking it. One other tidbit from Fox News, which seems to be one of the only agencies in the media who's pursuing the question of how in the hell did this happen? It's amazing to me that all these other news agencies are like, oh, wait, it just hurt his ear and somebody died and there's two other critically injured and everything. Okay, yeah, he shouldn't have been on that roof, I guess. How did that happen? Oh, well, let's move on. Move on? Seems to me there's a story here, guys. And Fox News has a little bit more.
Donald Trump took the stage. For more, we want to go to Aisha because there was a briefing today. You got some information about what happened, Aisha?
Dana, good afternoon to you. We just got a big information dump, and some of it is deeply, deeply troubling. So I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through this. Just bear with me here. A lot of notes that I'm going to look at here. Just about a couple minutes ago, these senators came out of this briefing with Secret Service. They've been asking for it for days now. Finally got it with the director and Secret Service staff. And the top headline that has come out of it, according to Senator John Barrasso, just spoke to him as soon as he hung up on this briefing. He said that apparently the Secret Service had identified as a character of suspicion this man, this shooter, because they saw a rangefinder on him as well as a backpack. And this all happened more than an hour before the shooting actually occurred. So they saw the guy and they identified this guy as suspicious. Now, more details coming from a source familiar here who was also in the meeting tells me that about 10 minutes before former President Trump went onto the stage, they had gone from looking at this guy as suspicious to now looking at him as a threat. That is coming from this briefing that the senators were in. They were told that Secret Service had called it in to a center that this guy they now identified as a threat about 10 minutes before President Trump walked on stage, and they still allowed him to walk onto that stage. I'm told the Secret Service agent in charge there was on the phone with local and state police about the threat while the shooting was taking place. That's huge. And that is raising a
Donald Trump took.
Yep, that is huge. And it opens up, again, the fundamental question: why was Donald Trump even allowed to go on that stage if there was a threat that had not been neutralized and not taken care of? One other thing here, because I know you guys know me. You've been watching this show for, well, what is it, 9 months now? I think we've been doing it daily. And those of you who know me from my radio program that I've been doing for over a dozen years in Washington, D.C., it's not like me to start charging people with evil, nefarious motives until we know for sure and get the evidence. I do want to follow the evidence on this. All right. I don't want to jump to conclusions and get ahead of this story. I'm telling you that the evidence has not ruled out any of those things. And so why would we rule it out? You know, when you start to say, well, it could be this, it could be that, but we're certainly not going to look over here because that would be awful. That would be terrible. That would lead people to the wrong conclusions. And we don't even want to talk about it out loud because it's so bad. And it's like, okay, when you do that, when you say we're not even going to look at that or ask those questions, and we certainly don't want to say anything out loud about those things, well, that's what makes people suspicious. The second somebody in the media who is supposed to care about free speech and the First Amendment says, well, we're definitely not going to talk about this angle of the story. We're just not even going to say it out loud because that's just, it would be wrong to say. Well, then you're suppressing thought, literally. And we get very defensive and suspicious about that sort of thing. The way you keep people from jumping to conspiratorial theories is that you are fully transparent and you are open to all places the evidence will take you. Otherwise, we go to wait 50 years for Oliver Stone to make a movie about it. So that's number one. Number two, I respect you. Unlike people at CNN and MSNBC, I think you're a grown-up. I think that you're adult enough to be able to have the conversation, see what's right in front of us. And I don't have to, well, I shouldn't say that because you might be a lunatic and then you're going to go do something half-cocked and crazy and violent. That's so insulting and demeaning to you as a human being, as a citizen. To put it bluntly, I think you can handle the truth. And finally, number three, it needs to be said. Yes, Ms. Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, her head is on the block right now. She's got to answer for this stuff. She's either incompetent or part of something very ugly here. But she needs to go, obviously. But who does she answer to? There are two people in the chain of command above her. One is Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, who is a political appointee of the other person. That would be the President of the United States, Joe Biden. And those two, Mayorkas, the political appointee, and Biden, the President of the United States, have spent the last 3.5, 4, 5, 7 years calling the person who just got shot in the head, calling him Hitler, calling him a fascist, calling him a threat to our republic, saying that if he gets elected, our entire country will be ruined, that it'll be the last free election that we ever have. Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas had been calling you racist, xenophobic fascists for supporting the man who just got shot in the ear. So when this event happens and suddenly you look at the chain of command and you hear things like, well, you know, they didn't have the resources that they wanted. They've been asking for more Secret Service, but they didn't get it. Oh, really? Well, who says no to more resources to protect Donald Trump? Well, the only people who ultimately have a veto power over those things are the same two people who have been calling him the fascist Hitler who needs to be stopped at all costs. Now, does that mean they wanted him murdered? I guess not necessarily, but maybe that's why you shouldn't say things like that. Because when you're in a position of power and responsibility, and one of your jobs is to provide security for Donald Trump, and you're on the record saying he has to be stopped at all costs, and then someone tries to put a bullet in his head, you look really bad. You look really, really bad, if not guilty. So Joe Biden, as you know, has mashed potatoes for brains. And ever since his complete and total public meltdown during the 90-minute CNN debate he engaged in, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? It seems like just yesterday. He has been on a tour. He's been giving interviews and doing scripted, teleprompted rallies and speeches to try to prove to everybody in the country and around the world that he doesn't have mashed potato for brains, that he's actually perfectly fine. Let me amend that. He's actually not trying to prove it to everyone in the world. He really only has to prove it to a very small handful of people, power brokers in the Democratic Party and the political left and in the media, and major fundraisers for the Democratic Party and for his presidential ticket. They are still not convinced. Every single day, he's got to go out and do another one of these interviews. And every single time the interview is over, he high-fives himself and thinks that he did a great job. There it is. Knocked it out of the park. Slam dunk. I'm at the top of my game. I'm sharp as a tack. And every single person he's trying to convince sort of say, oh my God, who's going to tell him? Who's going to tell him? And the latest version of this little parade is from Black Entertainment Television. He's trying to shore up support with the Black voters in the Black community. So let's see how that's going, Joe.
And so it's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense to a Black man. I named Ketanji Brown. I mean, because of the people I've named.
Wow. It's going great. You stay out there, Joe. We want to see more of this action from you. Can we break this down for a moment, please?
And so it's all about treating people with dignity.
This is all about treating people with dignity. Let's see how Joe Biden, sharp as a tack on the top of his game, treats people with dignity.
And it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense to a Black man.
Now, I believe he's talking about retired four-star general from the United States Army and graduate of West Point, Lloyd Austin, who is now his Secretary of Defense. That's how I think of the man. You, of course, probably just go by the shorthand nickname that he's got, the Black Man. Serious. He's on Black Entertainment Television. He's tried to celebrate, and this is so typical of Joe Biden. Hey, I appointed a Black person to this job. What more do you want from me, you people? Every time he's supposed to show, what did he say? This is how you treat people with dignity. And he can't even remember his name. He calls him the Black Man. And every time he's challenged about his compassion or his virtue or his values, he says, well, look at it. I spent money on this thing. What more do you want? I appointed this person. What more do you want? And there's another lie in here. You always hear, oh, Trump lies, Trump lies. Listen to this lie.
For example, look at the heat I'm getting.
The heat I'm getting. He says mashed potatoes for brains. What he's saying is, look at the heat I got for appointing Lloyd Austin as Secretary of Defense. Now, I did a news search. I used 2 different search engines, not just the one that starts with G, to try to find criticism of Joe Biden when he appointed Lloyd Austin as Secretary of Defense. And the only criticism that I saw at the time was from other retired members of the military who had served with him, who were struck by the fact that he focused a little bit more on non-warfare issues, let's say. But none of it had to do with the fact that he was Black. There was literally zero heat on Joe Biden for appointing the Black Man. And Ketanji Brown Jackson, I mean, the only heat he got about Ketanji Brown Jackson, again, had nothing to do with her skin color. It had to do with the fact that he said that he was going to nominate someone to the Supreme Court who is a Black woman. In other words, the heat was not on the fact that she was a Black woman. The heat was on him for prioritizing race and sex over competence and intelligence and the Constitution. But this is how you treat people with dignity, my friends. Oh, one other thing that is missed here. Watch, he was about to say, when he says appointed the black man, he says, look at the heat I got when I appointed a, and then he stopped himself. I wonder what the noun was going to be. I wonder what I appointed a. Any guess on to what his brain was about to lead him to?
It's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense, a black man. I named Katanji.
Wow. This really is. I hope it's a great insight into who he really is. And he's right. It's all about treating people with dignity. I want Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, retired 4-star general, graduate of West Point. I want him to get brand new business cards printed out if he had any sense of humor and go around DC and say, hi, Lloyd Austin, the black man. If he's got a Twitter account, he should change that to his description right now. Hey, isn't that Lloyd Austin? That's right. I'm the black man. What a complete buffoon. That was actually not even the worst of this interview. Here, I'm going to let this play for a while. What's really fascinating about this from Black Entertainment Television, that unlike NBC News and unlike ABC News with those exclusive, not so exclusive interviews at this point, since he's giving it to any outlet he can, they all chopped up and edited those interviews to make him look his absolute best. And they were still disasters. Black Entertainment Television, they were like, screw it. Let's just let the cameras roll. We'll let the world see how this guy is. And, well, we saw. Watch.
It's about why he got involved in the first place. Look, I got out of school, high school, and my state was segregated by law to its great shame in Delaware. And I got involved in the civil rights movement. No great shakes, just sit-ins and, and things like that. And the end result of this was all the friends I made. For example, one of the guys who my mom talks about when Barack would call me and saying he wanted to do a background check on me because he wanted to think of me as vice president. I said, I don't want to be vice president. And he said, no, there's only you and two others. I said, Barack, I can help you more as a senator. I really believe that. He said, no. He said, well, damn it, there's only you. And I said, Barack, I don't want to be vice president. He said, well, go home and talk about it. He knows my parents, my mom, my dad's dead. So we had a meeting. I was on the train and then going back to Wilmington. And when I got home, we sat in the back porch, called the family together. My son was alive then, my two sons, my daughter. The only outside other than the family member that was there was Ted Kaufman. It was my best friend and was just sitting stepped in as senator when I got elected vice president. And so we went around the room. On the porch, what do you want to do? And my wife said, you ought to do it because if you don't, he's going to ask you to be Secretary of State and you'll be away all the time. And then my son, Bo, who was Attorney General, should be sitting there, not me. And I said, Dad, you have an obligation, went through it. And so everybody made their case, and I still didn't want to do it. My mom was sitting against a railing, and over on the porch was like a story up from the ground. And I said, honey, you haven't said anything. She said, Joey. She said, remember when you were a kid? Remember when I called you when you got out of the race with Brock, and you asked about him? He said, he's really bright. He's an honorable man. He'll make a good president. And I said, yeah, Mom, I remember that. I said, remember when you were a kid and they were desegregating Mayfield, the neighborhood we live, the neighboring neighborhood called Linfield? You were 14 or 15 years old. I told you not to go down there because there were people protesting, but you went down and you got arrested for being on the porch with a black family. And they brought you back home. I said, yeah, I remember that, Mom. She said, remember you had that job as a lifeguard in a country club setting? Did you want to be the only white guy to work in the east side in the projects as a lifeguard? I said, yeah, Mom. So let me get this straight, honey. The first black man in history has a chance to be president. You told him no. That's how it's always been with me in the black community.
I think that performance, that story, and that delivery, and the reaction of the guy interviewing him, I think it speaks for itself. I will just add my one somewhat rhetorical question, although let's not make it rhetorical. You can actually reply in the comments. Here's the question. Does anybody believe that story? Does anybody believe any part of that story, especially the entire premise of the story, which is Joe Biden did not want to be vice president of the United States? Does anybody believe that? I'll look for your answers in the comments section. The most noteworthy part of this entire interview, though, was a little throwaway line that within hours resonated in a enormous way around the world. Watch this.
So I had some medical condition that emerged. If the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem. But I made a serious mistake in the whole debate. And look, when I originally ran, you may remember it, I said I was going to be a transitional candidate. And I thought that I'd be able to move from this to pass it on to someone else. But I didn't anticipate things getting so divided.
I didn't anticipate things getting so divided. I mean, after I gave that speech in front of Independence Hall where it was drenched in blood red and I was screaming like a madman about my political opponents, 50% of the American populace being right-wing fascists who were ruining our country. I never knew that would actually cause division. When I sicked the judicial system on my political opponent to try to put him in jail and raided his home in the middle of the morning, I had no idea that would actually cause division. When I started arresting people for praying in front of abortion clinics and throwing them in jail for over a decade, I had no idea that would cause division. How was I to know? But again, the real headline is right at the beginning here. You caught it.
So I had some medical condition that emerged. If the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem. But I made a serious mistake.
He would get out of the race if a medical condition was found and a doctor said, hey, you've got this problem or that problem. Hours after that revelation, it was announced that Joe Biden has, in fact, been diagnosed with COVID-19. I believe this is the third or fourth time that he's had it. He's on booster number 8, too. Thought that'd be a lesson to you. By the way, just on an aside, do you know anybody in your life who has caught COVID in the last 2 years, like for a second time, that didn't also get booster shots? Anyone? Every single person that I know in my life that has had COVID since, the pandemic ended a couple of years ago, every single person I know has booster shots. It's amazing. I'm just saying. So after it was discovered that he had COVID, he boarded a plane, canceled an appearance in Nevada, and went back to Delaware. Not to Washington, D.C., not to the White House, where he lives and where there is a 24/7 medical facility steps away from the president's residence. He didn't go back to the White House. He went home to Delaware. And maybe he's more comfortable at his home in Delaware. Or maybe he likes the fact that when doctors and specialists come to visit him there, they don't have to sign a visitor log that is then public record. But here is Joe Biden walking up the short steps into the belly of Air Force One. This, of course, is the modified approach they use, these stairs, which are easier for him to navigate. Watch how easy they were for him to navigate yesterday. Then, after resting all day on the cross-country trip back to Delaware, he then emerged to walk down those very same short stairs. And let's see, after all that rest, if he had any sort of renewed vigor or strength. Oof. Well, listen, going up and down stairs, especially if it's been raining, they might be wet, they might be slick. That's not always easy to do. You know what's easy to do? Getting into a car, an SUV. Now, that's a breeze. Who has trouble getting into an SUV? I want you to watch this. Now, you have to look through the window of the presidential SUV here to see what's going on. And I'm just going to let you know ahead of time because it might be hard to make out. But what you're seeing on the other side of this vehicle is Joe Biden coming up to the open door and then turning and going sort of sitting into the car with his butt, with it, backing into the seat, which is, by the way, a weird way to do it. If you ever get into a car, you always lift your leg up, right? And you step into the car leading with your leg. No, not our Joe. He turns his entire body around and then he tries to back into the seat. But watch what happens when he tries to do that.
When he got down there at the base of the stairs there, he was asked questions by reporters. He told them, "I am doing well." He gave them a thumbs up. He is now going to be isolating at his beach house. And we did note he wasn't wearing a mask there.
Oh, forgive me. I totally missaw this video earlier today when I saw it, but now that I'm watching it a second time, he's not trying to back in. He actually is putting his head is in, and he's trying to then lift himself into the SUV, and he can't do it. But I apologize. It's not rear end first. It's actually head first. He's holding on to the handle by the door, and I guess he's got his other hand on the seat of the car. And let's start it from the beginning again so you can see, because he approaches. That's him right there with a hat on, okay? You just saw him descend the stairs of Air Force One. There's the hat right there in the window. See that? I'm highlighting it. All right, now watch him try to inch his way into the car.
He got down there at the base of the stairs there. He was asked questions by reporters. He told them, "I am doing well." He gave them a thumbs up. He is now going to be isolating at his beach house. And we did note he wasn't wearing a mask there when he came down the stairs. But it does appear once he gets in the car that he puts that mask on.
Puts the mask on. It appears that he might be getting a little help just getting into the car there. Hard to make out through the rain what exactly is going on there. But it does look like certainly the president's feeling the effects of early in the stages of COVID, and many of us have been there. So we do wish him a speedy recovery. John Carl, you're reporting earlier on World News Tonight, getting some pickup tonight across several news.
I'm sorry. If you've had COVID, most of us have by now. Was it so debilitating that you couldn't get into a car? And you heard conversation there about masks. Not once was he seen with a mask in any public setting. I remember Donald Trump was destroyed for refusing to wear a mask. I'm glad he didn't wear a mask on multiple occasions because it is a sign of weakness. You put a mask on this guy who's already the sign of weakness, and he just gets, the imagery is like he's a plate of Jell-O. Let's face it. So I understand why they didn't want to have a mask, but hypocrisy, anyone? This is the political movement that called you worse than, Satan if you didn't wear a mask while you were walking alone on the other side of the sidewalk, and then Karen would come screaming at you. Happened to me many times. One other aspect of this, remember yesterday's video of Joe Biden in Nevada entering a grocery store and then going right to that little girl and sniffing her face off? Remember? And there was another video of him visiting a Mexican restaurant and leaning over people's food while they were eating and sort of slobbering his greetings to them because the man has no respect for personal space. Well, in both of those instances, every single person that he encountered, they were exposed to his virus. What a guy. And then finally, this morning on Good Morning America, George Stephanopoulos and Jonathan Karl on a breaking update on the long knives out for Joe Biden. I think you'll get a kick out of this if you're a regular viewer of this program.
And John, we have to begin with President Biden. Boy, the walls are closing in on him.
Oh, they sure are, George. As we first reported here on ABC, Senator Chuck Schumer over the weekend traveled to Rehoboth, Delaware, visited one-on-one with President Biden, and very directly, very bluntly told him that it would be bad for him and bad for Democrats if he stayed in the race, urged him to get out of the race. It is a message that I am told has also been delivered by Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, and also by Nancy Pelosi. So you have essentially the entire elected leadership of the Democratic Party telling him to get out. And in response to all of this, Biden, the White House has said, put out a statement in response to each one of those stories. The president told both leaders he is the nominee of the party. He plans to win, and he looks forward to working with them on an agenda for next year. But George, I just don't see how it is tenable for Joe Biden to continue as the Democratic nominee, president and Democratic nominee in 2024.
All right, a couple of things about this, mostly just to let you know that the story does continue to grow and have legs. Axios reporting also this morning that Democrat insiders, high-ranking insiders in the party and in the White House, expect President Biden to make his announcement that he will no longer be on the ticket by this weekend, if not today. I think to steal Donald Trump's thunder, he will make that announcement today. But two things to note. First, notice how George and John Carl are like, oh, yeah, this is so sad. I mean, they're it's like somebody shot their puppy. It's like Christy Noem's been around the puppy mill there in their backyard. Because why are they so sad? Why are they so upset? I thought that they were just straight newsmen reporting the news. Why would it make you sad? Unless he's your guy, unless you're on his team, and then it makes you sad.
We have to begin with President Biden. Boy, the walls are closing in on him.
Yeah.
Oh, they sure are, George.
Wow.
As we first reported here on ABC.
Yeah, and then there's that. Really, John? As we first reported here on ABC, and it's true, Jonathan Karl did report late in the afternoon yesterday that Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, had visited Joe Biden at his home in Delaware and told him to get off the ticket. It's true, Jonathan Karl did report that. But the first reporting, was that the first reporting, Jonathan Karl? Is that how you put it?
Oh, they sure are, George. As we first reported here on ABC.
Well, if you're a viewer of this program, you learned of this at 12:05 yesterday, hours before Jonathan Karl reported it. And by the way, I gave full credit to the crew over at the Ruthless podcast. They have great sources in the Senate. They know people who are staffers of Chuck Schumer's, et cetera, and they reported it on the Ruthless podcast. I reported it to you, and then Jonathan Karl, hours after the fact, as first reported here on ABC News. God, they are worse than biased, and they're worse than hacks. They're absolutely irrelevant at this point. I'm thinking the only time you ever see these guys is when we highlight how bad they are. And that's a good thing. We're glad to have you in our audience. And I bet you're glad to be here. So how insane is Joy Reid at MSNBC? I mean, we've been showing you clip after clip after clip for the vast many months of Joy Reid's slow decline into insane dementia. But this latest one might take the cake. I warn you, it isn't pretty.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected, and presidential candidate. We know almost nothing. Why? Why don't we know that much? We know that 3 people were shot. 1 person, unfortunately, was killed at the rally. We don't know where they were sitting or standing relative to him. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up during an active shooter situation, even though they, at that point, had said the shooter was down. How would they have known if there were more shooters or not? Nobody knew that there could have been 5 shooters for all they knew. Yet they allowed him to stand up in the middle of that, crisis and pose for a photo. fist pump the air so he could get the iconic photo. And then they allowed him to stand up again outside of the SUV instead of just shoving him into the SUV. That seems really unusual. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity about it, in the sort of media world, my profession. It's weird, right? Where are the FOIAs? Why isn't the New York Times aggressively pursuing his medical records? It's just weird. Just a strange thing that I've noticed. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it too, but it's weird.
I'm just over here asking questions. I'm Joy Reid, but she's going to be so good when Trump wins the election and is back in office. I mean, that's going to be some must-see TV if this is what she's bringing now. A couple of things, by the way. We know it wasn't a glass fragment from the teleprompter because we have pictures of said teleprompter panels completely intact after the shooting. Anybody with eyes can see that, but it doesn't matter because she's just asking questions. We also do know where the victims are in relation to where President Trump was speaking. They were to the stage left of the podium. We've got video, in fact, of the victims and people calling for assistance over there. We know that. We also know that the Secret Service determined that the threat was over when they did get him up and move him off of the stage. We know that. We also know, by the way, that Donald Trump did not pose for a photograph. He showed a sign of strength and defiance and resilience and courage that was captured by a photographer. That's not the same thing as posing for a photograph. This is a hateful, insane person who, by the way, if she was a conservative working for a conservative or right of center news outlet, she would be fired, if not having to defend herself from a potential lawsuit right now. Don't believe me? Ask Alex Jones. Please tell me what's different about what Alex Jones has said in the past about things that have gotten him in trouble versus what she has just done. She's calling this a false flag. She's saying that there were crisis actors involved. She thinks the whole thing was done to promote Donald Trump. You know that Donald Trump, he's so evil, he'll let himself get shot in the head to stay in power. That's Donald Trump for you. And I love the newfound curiosity and demand for medical records and information from doctors. If there's a medical condition from someone under Secret Service control. Last I checked, there's a whole lot of questions about Joe Biden's health that we're not getting any answers to, but that she seems fine with. What an evil, evil woman this is. And the best part is MSNBC is stuck with her. They can never fire this woman. Isn't that beautiful? But it's not over there at MSNBC just Joy Reid that's showing the insane levels of hatred. No. Our pals, you know them, we love them, Joe and Mika. Joe was really upset about J.D. Vance being the nominee for vice president. Joe wants to run for president. You know that, right? It's been that way for years. And so he's very upset now that J.D. Vance is going to be closer to the Oval Office than he'll ever get. Listen to his reaction of his speech last night.
This whole populist thing is crazy. And this whole we love America and nobody else loves. How do you love America? If you're always saying that it's terrible, how do you love America when you deny that we have the strongest economy in the world? How do you love America when you deny that we still have the greatest entrepreneurial engine in the world? How do you love America when you continue to tear down the strength of America's military, when you call them weak and woke, when in fact they're stronger relative to the rest of the world than any time since 1945? How do you love America when you keep talking about how terrible America is? That is the great enduring mystery I would love answered. And that is a great enduring mystery that I wish Democrats would actually ask Republican candidates.
We'll continue with this in a moment, but I just want to remind you that this is the political movement, a political party and ideology that embraces the 1619 Project, that claims that the actual origins of this country is not from the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Revolutionary War and the fight for freedom and liberty. No, no, no. This country is defined by the arrival of the first African slaves on our shores, that's what we're really all about, and that's what's in our DNA. This is the same political movement and the same ideology you see displayed here that look at America every single day from a proctologist perspective, that we are systemically racist, that we are xenophobic, that we are transphobic and homophobic and Islamophobic, and that we're sexist, and that women can't get a fair shake here, and that we're trying to control women's bodies, and America is inherently misogynistic, and if we had our way, following our founders' advice, women wouldn't be able to own property or vote, and it would be the Handmaid's Tale. That's what we hear every single day from that political ideology. And this man dares, with his bouffant, bleach blonde hairdo, to sit up there and say, oh, how do you say you love America when you have criticism? No, we do love America. That's why we're criticizing the direction that the Marxists are taking it. What they're doing to America is what we don't like. How they're transforming America is what we're upset about. But I just wanted to point that out in case it was lost on you.
I think for J.D. Vance, his effort to sort of symbolize his transformation from venture capitalist to this version of himself was when he grew the beard. Like those old Shaw, he had no beard back then. Now he has the beard, and that's trying to symbolize his new political viewpoint. But you make a good point about this dark vision of America that we've heard from Republicans, when all the data doesn't really back that up. Yet we know there is sort of a post-COVID malaise here in the United States, other countries too. Inflation now cooling, but been too high. But by the numbers, America is as prosperous and successful as it's ever been in a lot of metrics. But yet, and that stands in stark contrast to the vision being painted, not just by Vance, but most notably Donald Trump. And that's why I do think maybe he'll stick to a script tonight and preach unity. We all know that won't last. His Truth Social suggests otherwise, that he will indeed go back to depicting America as apocalyptic. Thinking that resonates with his voters. We'll see if it does for the rest of the electorate.
I so hope that the Democrats and intelligentsia watched this show, took notes, and they put it right into their plan for every election up and down the ticket between now and November. I hope so. I know they watch this show. They're the only ones who do. And I hope they said, that's right. By the numbers, we have the strongest economy ever. So all of you people who are paying $5 for a dozen eggs and $10 for a pound of ground beef and $5 for a gallon of gas, all you people who can't make ends meet, whose pay increase has not caught up with the cost of the fundamental staples of existing in this country, all you people don't know how good you've got it, because the numbers are there, baby. We've got 17 Nobel laureate economists who have said this economy is just fine. So all you people who are complaining, you are so full of shit. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know what the hell you're experiencing, and you're wrong. We're right. We know better. The numbers are there, and this economy is the best. I hope that's the message going forward. Nothing elitist about that either. Other reflections, though, on J.D. Vance's speech, most notably from Alex Wagner, anchor at MSNBC. She saw through all of the patriotism and love for the Midwest and the forgotten people of Appalachia. She saw through all of the concerns about trade agreements that benefited foreign countries at the expense of the American worker and the American economy. She saw through all of that. And what she saw clear as day, of course, you know it, you love it, you got to embrace it. She saw what was really at the base of it, racism.
I know that there was not the same red meat sort of blood and soil nationalism that you might hear in, I don't know, other parallel universe Republican conventions. But I do think there were some sort of Easter eggs of white nationalism in the speech. One of the things that stuck out to me was when he started talking about what America is. He said, America is not just an idea. It is a group of people with a shared history and a common future.
the thing about America is that it's not a group of people with shared history. In fact, I think a lot of people would argue it's quite the opposite. It's a lot of people with different histories, different heritages.
His in-laws don't share the history.
Exactly. And that's the other piece of it. He goes on, he went a long sort of a paragraph at least about this plot in eastern Kentucky where his 6 generations of his family are buried. And his hope is that his wife and he are eventually laid to rest there and their kids follow them. And I sort of understand the idea of sharing the burial plot, but it also it reveals someone who believes that the history that the family should inherit, and indeed the history that should be determinative in the story of the Vance family, is the history of the Eastern Kentucky Vances, and not the Vances from San Diego, which is where his wife is from and where her Indian parents are from. But in America, it doesn't always have to be the white male lineage that trumps that defines the family history, that branch of the tree supersedes all else. And I just think the construction of this notion reveals a lot about someone who fundamentally believes in the supremacy of whiteness and masculinity. And it's couched in a sort of halcyon, revisitation of his roots, but it is actually really revealing about what he thinks matters and who America is. And that America is a place for people with a shared Western background. And that is the idea of America. That is the nation of America that he wants to resurrect.
Wow, those were some really fancy words from a Brown-educated Ivy League woman who now has the pleasure of being an anchor on a major cable news network. A lot of fancy words to basically say the same thing that we've been hearing for decades now. You conservative Republicans, you're white nationalist, racist Klansmen. But it was fancy, I have to say. By the way, coming from a woman of color who chose to marry a white man who was the personal chef of Barack Obama in the White House and is a political activist as well. I wonder where their burial plot will be. You see, there are two distinct perspectives on this country that we see. It has nothing to do with skin color, though. It has to do with the elevated elites versus the rest of us and the rabble. That's really what's at play here. Best personified by the elitist of all the elites, Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow's take on J.D. Vance is not dwelling in the ugly netherworlds of populism, as you saw from Joe Scarborough, or racism from Alex Wagner. No. She has a more elevated, hateful take on J.D. Vance. It has to do with his reading habits. I kid you not, this is not from Babylon Bee. This is not AI generated. This was real, legitimate political analysis last night on MSNBC.
Like Mr. Teal, who has named his companies after things in the Lord of the Rings series of J.R.R. Tolkien books. Lord of the Rings is a sort of favorite cosmos for naming things and cultural references for a lot of far-right and alt-right figures, both in Europe and the United States. Peter Thiel names all these things after Tolkien figures and places, like his company Palantir, for example. Like his mentor, like Peter Thiel, who had given him all his jobs in the world, Mr. Vance also, when he founded his own venture capital firm with help from Peter Thiel, named it after a Lord of the Rings thing. He called it Narya, Narya, which you can remember because it's Aryan, but you move the end to the front. Apparently that word has something to do with elves and rings from the Lord of the Rings series. I don't know.
That was legit. That was real. You should be really afraid of J.D. Vance because he's a fan of Lord of the Rings, one of the great works of English literature of the last century, a beloved book and beloved movie adaptation as well, made by Hollywood. It's really a secret white supremacist racist book, don't you know? And that's the real nefarious problem with J.D. Vance, is that he's all tokeny. My favorite part of that, by the way, was what was it? Narya is actually Aryan with the N moved. Yeah, anybody who likes Lord of the Rings has got to be a crazy right-wing, white supremacist, wacko Klansman, like this guy. very youthful there, and the more he moved to the left and became a public Trump deranged syndrome critic of the Republicans and the Trump presidency, it surely showed on his face, right? It's funny how these people age in such an ugly and hateful way when they become so, what's the word I'm looking for? Ugly and hateful. This was when Conan O'Brien was still broadcasting from New York on NBC. And the show Stephen Colbert is referring to, of course, is his old show on The Daily Show. So this has got to be almost 15 years old, I'm guessing, putting together my late night television timeline there. Tonight on CBS, as Stephen Colbert now does the Late Show there, which is supposed to be a late night comedy talk show, but it's become basically group therapy for liberals to scream about Trump. I have no doubt that he will disavow his love for Lord of the Rings, his deep devotion to that great classic work of literature, because Rachel Maddow has said that it's bad. And Stephen Colbert has to be right with Rachel Maddow. That's much more important. Much more important. So get ready for that tonight. And for those of you who, like me, enjoy their Tolkien now and again, who enjoy Lord of the Rings, oh, hell, if you're like me and you either read one of the books or watch all 3 movies on an annual basis, just stick with it. Don't worry about it. We're on the right side of history here, and there's nothing wrong with you. I promise. Trust me. You're fine. They're the problem. Seriously. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode as we wrap up this week at the Republican National Convention and give you highlights of President Trump's speech and whatever other surprises might happen. That's right, Hulk Hogan. I'm talking about Hulk Hogan, for God's sake. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.